Live from Ittner Architects, this is Issues in Education. Here to lead a roundtable discussion with leaders in education is moderator John Carney on KTRS.
Big 550 KTRS, Carney Show, sort of. We move things around a little bit. Martin Kilcoyne on assignment or a wedding or something. He didn't actually give me details. We've gone out of the studio and we've come down to Tantera, the Lake of the Ozarks, for the annual conference of the Missouri School Board Association. And Ittner Architects, of course, bringing you those issues in education roundtables that Martin has done. Honestly, it seemed more fitting that I would be doing it anyway, having gone to 5 or 6 educational institutions, and that was just high school. Let's get that out on the table. A lot of ground to cover, and with the annual convention being here, too, it's nice to be able to comb from the number of experts in different areas, all making themselves available. So for the next hour and a half or so, it is exactly what we will cover. And we start with the man that really put this together, or at least that's what he's telling people. He's the president and CEO of Ittner Architects, and we've had a chance to visit with Dennis Young in the past a little bit. Thank you for having us once again, sir.
Well, thanks for coming down. This is an important event.
My question for you was my first question when I met you several months ago, not really understanding the correlation between running an architectural firm. And I see how you would get involved in education as you design schools and build schools, right. But to take the helm of doing what you do and taking it farther to these roundtables, what drives you for this?
Well, we've been very privileged to be asked by school boards and superintendents to meet with them and talk about the issues that are important to education. All of those are important when you plan and design a school. And what we hear are just some amazing stories when it relates to early childhood education, security in schools, how you finance facilities and expansion, and all the rest. And as we move to the other side of the fence, which is working with communities and community engagement, where boards want that kind of input as they're looking at long-term options, we're finding that some of that information is really not getting to the community.
This is a little inside baseball and has very little to do with issues in education, but just in the mere design and building a school. When you go to different parts of town or you go to different parts of the country, does the design change, or is a house of higher education, pretty general no matter where you put it?
It's all very tailored. It's all about the curriculum. It's all about what are the expectations of that community and that school district. And although there's some commonalities because learning occurs in the classroom and you really think about how those classrooms are shaped, it's all different. Everybody has a little different view on how they want the rooms to be shaped, how they want the communities to use the schools, and it's a very personalized process.
As we mentioned, we're down for the Missouri School Board Association's annual conference, and we have its executive director, who took over July 1st. Melissa Randol joins us on the program. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
What is your background in education with all of this before you became the honcho?
Well, I'm a school law attorney, and I have worked for Missouri School Boards Association as an attorney and as an executive for 21 years.
So I imagine putting this event together, too, a lot of that ending up on your plate. Logistically, I would think when you're dealing with educators and all these people with their schedules from all over the state, this had to be quite a trick to do. Do you start planning the 2016 one on Monday?
You bet. Actually, we do. We will start next week and planning for 2016 because this is a large event. Not only do we sell out Tantera, but we also have a number of other properties around the lake.
Missouri School Board Association, and I got to plead ignorant, which I do really a lot of the time on most everything. Explain to me a school board. I know they are involved. There's principals, there's superintendents, and there's a board that acts independently, but I'm not really sure how they coexist and what the roles are.
Great. Well, school boards are, in Missouri, they're elected, they're nonpartisan, and they typically serve 3 years in their elected capacity, and they're the governors of the school district. They set policy. Their primary role is to hire a CEO who then executes the policies through procedures and actions and hires the rest of the staff. And they set the budget and strategic plan for the district.
So it's tough to say a school board member looks like this because they're all different. But criteria-wise, I would think a background in education would have to be essential.
Actually, not really. That's the beauty of school board service is we have the school boards don't act independently. They act as a team. There's typically 7 board members in each district. And the richness of their various backgrounds, I think, enhances their ability to represent the community and the community's desires for their educational priorities in their school district.
What is the interaction between the board and, say, the superintendent and the principal and maybe even some of the educators in each of the classrooms? Is there much?
Well, the board hires the superintendent, and that really is their primary role in terms of hiring. And even though in Missouri statute they have to approve the contracts for the other employees, the expectation is that the superintendent will make the recommendation for the other employees. So the board's really interacting primarily with the superintendent as their CEO, and allowing that education professional to carry out the wishes of the board. But the board does not interact with the teachers and the principals on a daily basis.
Missouri School Board Association also has a point person. He is their chief of staff, and he joins us. Brent Ghan is here, and we don't have time to talk a bunch of our background together, but our paths have crossed over the last several decades.
They have, John, indeed, yes.
So I'm not going to say justify your check, but tell me exactly what it is that falls on your plate on a regular basis.
Well, general oversight, John, of our organization, the Missouri School Boards Association, in terms of our programs and services, and also communications functions fall under my responsibility. So it's a broad range of responsibilities with the organization. And I might mention that Missouri School Boards Association, people kind of get confused in the world of education about who we are and because of our name.
Sure.
And we are a private, not-for-profit organization. We are not a state agency. People get us confused sometimes with our State Department of Education, elementary and secondary education, but that's not who we are. We represent school boards across the state who join our organization. And by the way, school boards do not have to join at all. It's strictly voluntary if they want to, yet around 80% or so of the boards in Missouri do belong to our organization.
I had no idea this was not a government-affiliated organization. So talk pros and cons of that, and like being a charity that's not a United Way organization. They don't get the support of the United Way, but they also have a lot of freedoms and don't have to jump through certain hoops.
Well, that's exactly right. I think that
I'm sorry, what was that last part again, Brent?
That's exactly right.
That's what I wanted to hear. Okay. You may continue now.
But yes, I mean, since we're not a state agency, and in that regard, we can be a very aggressive, I think, advocacy organization. That's a big part of what we do. We advocate for school boards, for the notion of local decision-making in education, which is a big issue. There's a lot of debate about who should make the decisions in education. Should it be local, state, or federal? We do that. We are also strong advocates for the institution of public education and the idea that we as a nation and as a state are committed to educating all children. That's the fundamental commitment of public education, that we educate every child that comes to our door, and we're very proud of that. And, there are those these days who are, frankly, attacking public education, and we feel one of our roles is to defend that institution and preserve our commitment to educating all children.
Not only do we set him at the end of the table, but I'm getting to him last. I would think Larry Felton is probably building some type of complex over there. From the Mehlville Board of Education, also is the president-elect, so we'll be stepping in to the presidential role down the road a piece. And coming from the perspective that you do with the Board of Education in the Mehlville School District brings an interesting perspective. Do you foresee a lot of differences in your role in going from one spot to another?
No, not really. The reason I got involved with MSBA was professional development. We place a great emphasis on our teachers, on our other community members to learn more about the school district, to learn more about how to be better educators. So school board members come in with no experience, some experience, a lot of experience with their school district. This is one way to even the playing field and give us a real good chance to understand issues much quicker.
A lot of things to get to. It is the Issues in Education Roundtable discussion, and we are at the annual Missouri School Board Association Conference in Tantera in the Conference Center at the Lake of the Ozarks, and the Issues in Education Monthly Roundtable, heard here on KTRS, brought to you by Ittner Architects. Things we will get to later, certainly security, and yesterday's news moving that to the forefront of a lot of people's minds, and we will speak to some folks that are especially trained and well equipped to discuss it, as they are former FBI people and folks in charge of security of entire school districts in the state. We'll get to that later on. Early childhood, something else we'll be touching on. Standardized testing, something else that we will be getting to. So a lot to get to, and they have put together a wonderful panel of experts. So before we finish with you guys, let's go around a little bit and talk about the state of things, where they are now. You're in the midst of this conference. You've taken a look at Missouri education under a microscope. As a pedestrian, the things that we see in the news and things that are reported in the news of test scores are down, and we'll get to that a little bit too. Right where we are, just as a state in the field of education.
I think education is going through a revolution. I see a lot of people working very hard, trying to get the community support necessary, and I see school designs are changing, curriculum's changing, the way teaching occurs, issues of STEM for science, technology, engineering, and math. It's a whole new horizon, and if we're going to have students that are competitive in today's world, they're going to have to really learn, because the competition is strong.
What are the biggest challenges, Melissa, right now that you're seeing statewide in education?
How much time do we have? I think some of the biggest challenges you're going to be talking about through this program, one of those is funding.
Yeah.
We have seen a decline in overall funding at the state and federal level, and that shifts the responsibility back to local taxpayers to continue to fund essential services that are both required by law to provide to children and that are necessary for our students to excel. And another one is how do we continue to look at ways that we can provide children an education that will prepare them for their future, not our past. And that's a real challenge that we all face.
Indeed. Dennis Young, Melissa Randol, Brent, Ghan, Larry Felton with us on our panel. We are going to get into issues impacting financing in the schools. We have to take a quick break. We are live at Tantera. It is the Issues in Education Roundtable, brought to you by Ittner Architects. 10:20 on the Big 550 KTRS.